the heel got caught. It like was a puzzle piece and got caught in the step at the opening, and I'm literally going, ah, and until I leaped forward and landed on.
And actually, this is a true story for me. I 16, 17 years old, and I was going to do this thing with a candle. I was going to make this candle disappear, and I stuck flash paper in the end of this hollow magic wand, and then I put sparkle additive in the flash paper, right? And it's a sparkle additive. It's those sparklers that you light at 4th of July, and you're holding a stick and it's sparkling. It's that same powder that I dumped it in flash paper, and I stuffed that in the end of the magic wand. And so it was going to be amazing. And then what happened was when I lit the flash paper and I wanted to spin the wand like a pinwheel so it looked like, sparks was going out, the candle vanishes. It's going to be amazing. It's incredible. Well, I lit the flash paper and I went like this, and it was gone. Like it just stopped. And so I look at the inside the magic wand. I'm looking inside. I don't know what the heck's going on. My dad is watching this, by the way. And then all of a sudden, raining pyro comes down, and I go, it burns. I had a little burn on the top of my head, a little bald spot about the size of a quarter.
That's what happened to me.
And you smell that the smell of burning hair is like so specific, and I just go like this, and all this hair is coming out. Well, what had happened was when I went like this, the little wad in the wand flew out because of the momentum. My dad said he was watching. I was like 16 or 17 years old. My dad said he was watching from the other side of the room, and he just watched because he didn't know what was going to happen. So he watches this thing, and he starts showering and sparkling and falling down, and he's like, wow, this is great. And then when it's going all over me and I'm doing this, he realized that wasn't really supposed to happen. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, I had a little bald spot.
I was doing this show for Dick Clark when he was still alive, obviously. Producing after.
I mean, it would have been weird if you're doing it and he wasn't alive.
I will say that there are still shows that go on the air and they're like produced by Merv Griffin. I'm like, from the dead, he's producing new shows. So there was a time when Dick Clark did these live shows, American Bandstand Live, the American Music Awards Live, and it was a cast like singers and dancers, like a review show, but then they'd have like celebrity guest stars that would fill in the main slot.
Sure.
And I played the host, so of like Bandstand or the AMAs or whatever, and it would tour. And so it was this thing where it was very dated. It was like the screen would come down and it's a recording of Dick saying, 1982, Michael Jackson, blah, blah, blah. Right, Michael? That's right, Dick. So the opening number to the American Music Awards, everyone's wearing white, all the stars of the show. They introduce all the stars at the top of the show, the roster. And I'm wearing this white tux and, with the glitzy stuff. But I'm shorter than everybody else. And
Ruffles?
Dick didn't. Huh?
Did you have ruffles?
No ruffles, but I did have tails. And, a short man and tails, it's not really, But, in the old Vegas shows, they used to put the rhinestone around the lapels and everything. Oh, yeah. It was that. It was totally that. And he didn't like how short I was compared to everybody else. But, there's showgirls and skaters. I mean, it was a shit show. And so they gave me these gaucho boots with that really big heel on it, Have you ever seen those, the gaucho boots?
Yeah, no, of course I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so it's like a cowboy, for those who don't know. It's kind of like a cowboy boot, but the back heel is like a block, and it goes straight up to give you some lift. So I had to go down these stairs, and the heel got, how the stairs go like that. The heel got caught. It like was a puzzle piece and got caught in the step at the opening, and I'm literally going, and until I leaped forward and landed on my hip. Now, there is a video of that they rewound and watched in slow-mo many, many times. So that was a little scary. But as far as the stuff that happens on my own, I mean, like most acts, I mean, I have had, people try to beat me up on stage, or one time, a lot of little things like, I walked out on stage and they didn't tell me that the balcony was all Russian speaking people and the main floor was deaf. So not only couldn't they either couldn't understand me or they could not hear me.
Wait,
And
who booked you for this gig?
it was I was doing a show at a theater, and that was the audience that day. That's who booked the ticket for that theater. And no one told me that. So it's very quiet. It's quiet or on the top level, and on the bottom, there's a signing person, I guess, and I didn't see them, and they were laughing 2 seconds or 3 seconds after the joke was over, as I was setting up the next joke. So it was a full house.
I thought they were laughing, but they were just late.
Right. So I thought it was going to be an amazing house. It was a full house. Not being amazing, not my fault.
Wait a second. Okay, you kind of just glossed over this really fast. Yeah. You saying somebody wanted to beat me up on stage.
Oh yeah, I've had that. Oh, I've had that a lot. You set up an audience. A lot. Not as much anymore than I'm older, but if anyone's seen my act, like the ventriloquism is really just like dropped within the stand-up and the improv. It kind of is set.
That's true. It's almost secondary. I mean, it really, the improv and the comedy is what's driving the show, and the vent is what is kind of the reason.
Right, for a couple of reasons. One, I like improv stand-up. It keeps me feeling fresh as opposed to something that's carefully scripted. Also, most ventriloquists cannot leave the character.
Right.
And I find this refreshing for the audience. And I started that way. And it's a lot to sustain. Anyway, but we all have audience participation, and that doesn't always work out. Like I had someone where they didn't like something, a joke that I made the puppet say, and they stormed up on stage like it's me, the puppet, and then on that side is a guy going like screaming it, and I'm like looking around to see if he's gonna but not yelling at me. And the
that's
puppet,
because the illusion was perfect.
And he was horribly drunk. I was more afraid that he was going to hurt the puppet because it's an expensive prop.
Yeah, I mean, if he bashes you in, you go to the dentist, you fix your broken tooth, it's fine.
It's not going to hurt this. But my point to the stand-up was that, I'm a little, snarky and aggressive at how I mix up with the audience. So when I was young, and now that I have like gray hair and not a lot of it, I get away with it more. But when I was younger, people thought I was a jerk. So
you know what? That's a real interesting point that I remember. I mean, hopefully I still look young, but I remember when I was doing shows and I first started performing, even professionally, even post Ringling. So I was probably in my late 20s, but I started to look like I was 22, 23. But all before that, when I was 25 and younger, I looked like I was a teenager. I looked like I was 17. And so even though at 25, 26, the impression that you give, whether in your attitude, character, styles, looks, poses, I wasn't doing anything off color, but it was just a little bit of an attitude, even with like if I had a kid on stage helping me with the magic trick, I had to treat him very nicely. And because if I didn't, it was like, oh, you're kind of a jerk to this, kid. Now as an adult, where people think now that they realize I'm older, I can get away with a little bit more like, hey kid, like let's do, you know what I mean? It's just like different.
But I also think you and I don't need to do it, or people don't need to do it to a certain age because we're settling into ourselves. I think that most acts make the mistake of they think they need to be slick or cutting to be hip or something like that. And the truth is, if we would just know who we were and be the most us, that really is enough. And a lot of magicians feel like, they have to be funny even when it doesn't match they're doing this kind of magic, and then they do like jokes in between. I'm like, they just want to see the magic, they just want to see you do what you do best. not everything, you know, there's a particular cruise line that you work for a lot where they are just obsessed with comedy. So they always say comedy magician, comedy ventriloquist, comedy singer. Okay, of course it's a comedy ventriloquist. What else am I going to do? Like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. I'm depressed. You know, what am I? It's dumb. So yeah,
you know what though? I got into an argument with a promoter once because they are booking my show, and they took out an ad that said magic. It was like, it was three things: magic, comedy, and illusions. I think it was magic, comedy, and illusions. And I told him you have to take that out. I said, because in none of my materials do I ever say comedy. I say humor. I'll change it, and I won't, but I'll never say comedy, because comedy has a connotation with it. Comedy is, you're telling jokes. Stand-up comedy, we know what that is. And so I was never comfortable promising comedy. Now, people have left my show many times saying, oh my gosh, I laugh so much, it's funny.
But that's different though. That's because, you know, you've become the most, like, you're very comfortable on stage, and there's something, because of your age, because of how you dress, there's something very charming that is disarming, and in turn creates humor, right?
Humor, right, so, exactly.
And these bookers, you're right, there's a million ways you could create a pitch to get across what they're looking for without it not being your product. And by the way, that just waters it down. It sounds like everybody else. It's generic.
Right. And so I told them, I said, you need to stop that ad, and because they took it out once, and I said, it was a run. And I said, you need to change that right away. I said, I'm not comfortable promising comedy. That is bonus. If people leave saying that, great. I said, but I'm not. And I was pretty adamant about it. And they go, oh, okay. And I'm like, seriously though, because I take that seriously, because I am not a type of person to go and tell jokes. And also on top of that, I respect comedians and people that actually do real comedy, because it's like, that's pure. That is, you going in there and it's like, all right, make me laugh.
Right.
I mean, that's tough.
I mean, with any entertainer, if you're not a famous person, you have that, I used to think it was, go ahead, what?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I used to think when I first started that it was cheesy when performers would put pre-show video rolls up, like promotional stuff. And I thought they were selling themselves. Now I realize you kind of need it, because if you're not a household name, people want to know that you're not just doing children's parties, not that there's anything wrong with,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, at least if they can go, oh, I have seen him, or, oh, that looks interesting, or, oh, so it's important, but it only saves you it only gives you, a pass for the first 3 minutes you're on there, right? I mean, after that,
100%. Because after that, then it's like, well, you better deliver.
Yeah. I will say most of the stuff, as far as whether things that crashed and burned that were supposed to be amazing, the only way things really crashed and burned for me was when I had an idea and I did it, and the material was slow or not working. Slow or not working. But I have been involved in other things that were supposed to be amazing through other people that I was left holding the bag. Like, I was at a casino. I was there for like 4 months, and the PR person, where this is going, but I was young, I didn't know. They said, we have a high roller couple and he wants to propose to her. Can you set it up during the show in your act? I'm like, okay, sure. So of course, you know what happened. I used the guy, I sat him back down. I asked a few questions. I'm like, how long have you been together? Oh, 5 years. What are you waiting for? He doesn't move. I go, what are you waiting for? Gets down on one knee. The cameras are on him, all this stuff. He proposes to her. She is not happy and will not answer him. She's mad, or she doesn't want to marry him. So now I have to be like, unfortunately the audience can't really hear because it's like 2,000 people and they're like right down front. But I'm like, this is so nice. This is a private time. Continue this in private. Enjoy the champagne. And so as I'm bowing, like if this is the edge, if this is the proscenium right here, and backstage, like the PR people back there, I'm like, thank you. What the hell was that all about? You didn't. Oh, thank you very much. Why didn't you check this before to make sure it was gonna? Thank you. Good night. I'm gonna murder somebody. It was just not. It was terrible. So now,
Okay. So I've done maybe 3 or 4 proposals in my show. Now, 2 of them I knew the people, right? And they've seen my show, and there's a little relationship. My favorite one though is I was at a casino. This guy, as I call him on stage, I go into the audience. We're walking back onto the stage. My mic is off. His name is Saul. His name was Saul. He says, Alex. I go, yeah. He goes, I want to ask my girlfriend to marry me. And I was like, okay, good luck with that. Great. And he goes, no, I want to do it on stage right now. And I'm like, I'm busy. Like, I'm working. Like, the show. Yeah. And so I go, hold on. So I end up doing the routine with him, and I'm just thinking, and he's like the whole time, like, can I do this? Can I do this? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I end up doing the instant magician routine with him. I put the suit on him, and it was good because it gave me a chance to talk to the guy. Because then the music goes, my mic's off, and now I'm standing behind him, and I'm like, all right, listen, this is what's up. At the end of this, what I'll do is I'll get her on stage. You stay here. I'll leave stage. You propose, and then I'll come back on and set you back down. And as I'm like telling him, smile, like, and then, but here's the kicker. I said, and he goes, okay. I was like, all right. He goes, okay. And I say, one last thing. Are you sure she's gonna say yes?
Right.
And he's like, I go, are you sure she's gonna say yes? I mean, have you talked about this? I mean, you don't just spring it on someone. He goes, yeah, she's gonna say yes. I go, is she gonna say yes? Yeah. So I start hyping him up. She's gonna say yes. Yeah. So get on stage, Fiona. Her name was Fiona. I said, Fiona, please join me on stage. Every magician needs an assistant. You're up here. All right. I was like, Saul, do your magic. He proposed. She said yes. And yeah, right? Because I'm thinking, if she says no, man, I don't think I can recover. And so the show's going to be downhill. And so afterwards, we were filming it in nice camera, and I gave him a video of the proposal. And it was good. Thankfully it was good, and it worked out well. But you never want to promise these things.
No, not at all. And it's always some PR person that F's you.
Always.
I was on. There was a time when. But there was a time when I was taking out the ships for like press week and stuff like that. I was like one of the acts that they wanted for on this particular cruise line, and this actually happened to me on land at a theater in Biloxi, Mississippi, but it's more interesting on a ship because you're in the middle of nowhere. It's their biggest ship, and I'm doing the show, and I walk out on stage. I'm only like 3 minutes in, and the power goes out all over the ship. And because it was like the maiden voyage, the emergency lighting came on, but it wasn't quite working either. Like it was kind of like a half of a light or two kind of flickering, Now, this is my 30th year. I happen to love chaos. I think it's very exciting. I love it.
As if no one could tell.
I love it. I never abort. I mean, I'll abort the bit that I'm doing. Like there's been time where back there where I just gave up and I just dropped the puppet, dropped my arm, and the puppet's hanging off like a oven mitt, and I'm screaming at people like this and throwing the image. The imagery is gone. So for this, the power goes out. Everyone's kind of losing their shit a little bit. I walk off stage and I go to the crew. I'm like, everyone calm down. I'm like, give me a candle or a flashlight and just reboot the system and let me know when you're ready. And I go out and I do like 12 minutes in the dark, and I am murdering. It could have been the best show I've ever done in the dark. or you know, because it was in the dark. You know, I'm doing like the bouncing ball. I'm like, rope your neighbor. You know, I'm like, how much did you pay for this? I'm like, whatever. So, you know, and I went and did stand up like in the audience in the dark, and yeah, and in the back, the cruise director and his staff ran in because I thought they were gonna have to like appease everybody, and you know, I had it under control. And the guy and the cruise director, who was not an easy person to work with, later on, like 2 days later, he finally gave it up to me. He goes, you know, anyone else would have left the stage and just until we handled it. I said, well, you know, they are our audience that night. We're the independent contractor, right? This is our show, our audience. We have a responsibility, and then and handling it is what you get with someone who's been doing it for so long. So the next time I ask you for something, you know, don't be a dick. But
hey, you know, the funny thing though is that it was so good that your next show, they killed the power again.
They always want me to do the show in the dark, which is actually very good for a ventriloquist. It's a lot less work.
Yeah, I could do that. I can do ventriloquist.
Yeah, right. And you have.
Yeah.
But I had that happen on land too. I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was just talking about, I think to someone else when we lost power. Oh, it's Brett Barlow, who was the music director for Ringling. We just were talking about how we had this venue that we lost power in every year. So on the tour, like I remember the whole grid, everything went down. And I'm looking like, oh my gosh, geez, what do we have to, you know, different things and whatever, you know. And then Brett, when I was talking to him about it, he goes, oh yeah, we lose power here every year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, they can't handle our you know, whatever. And so we lose power every year at this venue. And I'm thinking, so if you know that going in, shouldn't we take care of that?
Be on your own generator or something.
Well, so then like the following tours, they finally did. But he goes, no, it was like for years. They just, every year they knew that it was just going to die at one point at this venue. It's like, okay, I guess. Like, it's not anything I can do, but I mean, it was pretty funny.
I did a couple of things that I thought would go well, where like joke-wise, where I
love that. I love the start of that. All of your beginnings are, I did a couple of things I thought was going to go well.
That's what your show is about.
That's what it is. It was going to be amazing. And then.
So I was a kid. I'm in Atlantic City. I'm doing my first like opening act thing, and I'm not a great act, you know, at that time. And I'm opening for Florence Henderson, who was not only Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch, but she was on the Dean Martin roast, and she sang, and she did all this stuff.
Sure.
And I'm sitting in my dressing room, and I'm like 22 or something, and I get a knock, and it's just me and a fruit tray, you know, and they open the door, they go, and it's Florence Henderson. She goes, hi, I'm Florence. You're allowed 2 Brady Bunch jokes, and that's it. And she closes the door. I'm like, oh, I didn't really prepare any Brady Bunch jokes. Does she expect me to, or she doesn't want me to go to town on her, or does she do her own, or I don't know what. So I go out on stage.
Does she want me to? That's how young you are. Does she want me to do Brady Bunch?
Wait, is that a thing? So I go out on stage and I go, you know, and the jokes were not great, but I go, you know, I never really understood Alice's role in the family, because they're like, Alice, you're like one of the family. Merry Christmas. Now go scrub the toilet. And I said, everyone has their favorite Brady Bunch episode. And mine was when Bobby played ball in the house and he broke the vase, and Florence sent him to his room, and he said, you know, and grounded him. And he said, you know, I don't have to really listen to you because you're not my real mother. You're just my father's whore. And that's when they punished him by making him get that perm for the rest of the series. So it doesn't really go anywhere. And then all of a sudden, it gets a roaring round of applause and laughter. She's behind me like this, just to help me out. You know what I mean? But it did not go well. I thought it would be funny. But again, that's the whole thing about being too young. And
having it would be funny. It was gonna be funny. And then I said the joke.
I thought it would.
It was funny in my head.
I thought it would make me seem like I was on the in with everybody else, like I was pulling it all together. That I'm a part of this evening, you know. But
you know what? You know what though? that is a little, like you said, good on her for standing, because that's what made it.
To help me out. That's right.
Good
And
on her.
then,
Good on her. That's a
then
professional.
right. And then about 10 years later, so
You were opening for her again.
now, so I'm with the Pointer Sisters, and people today don't really know who they are, but they have a huge songbook. I'm so excited, the Neutron Dance, and a million other songs that they wrote for other people. So when I was a teenager, I tell the audience this story about how, and this is true, when I was a teenager and I was with my first girlfriend at that time, shut it. I was very good, as you know. But
Yeah,
so my mom wants to do the sex talk. And so her version of the sex talk was, the Pointer Sisters used to have a hit called Slow Hand. Do you know this song? I like a man with a slow hand. I like a man with an easy touch. Okay, so that's the song.
Right.
She hands me a cassette of the Pointer Sisters and she says, listen to that song. And then she leaves. And that was how I was supposed to fare with.
No wonder nothing ever materialized between you.
No wonder I play with guys now.
Yeah.
So I tell the story. I tell the story. My opening act, I think I did like 30 minutes in front of them, I guess. I go to my dressing room. I'm changing, whatever. I think we had 2 shows that night. And all of a sudden, I'm getting called to the stage. I get up there and I'm like, oh, there's a problem. I need to fill time or something like that. And the sisters pulled me out on stage and put me on a stool and sing Slow Hands to me, making fun of my virginity. And so while it was wonderful for the audience, and again, I thought the story would help get me into the inner circle of the audience, it ended up, ruining me and sending me to therapy. But, as far as things that haven't worked out, like I said, a lot of it has been me. Like, I was dealing with the puppet and the eyeball popped off and rolled away and I didn't know it. Or a guy was drunk, and when I walk people on stage for audience participation, I always make them go first. Because years ago, I walked up on stage with some drunk guy, and he grabbed me in a headlock and pulled me to the floor. And he thought he was being funny, like he was like roughhousing with me or something like that. And then he helped me up.
I often think this. Sometimes, what is going on in people's heads when they go to do something? You know what I mean? I'm like, what are you thinking? What are you?
Yeah, right. I mean, there are times when I like to have control over my mic pack, so I can turn it on and off.
Always.
That way
Me too. Always.
Yeah, so I can turn and talk to someone. But then sometimes the sound guy puts it on PF. They don't turn it off in the monitor. I'm like, well, what is the point of that? Then the audience can hear it. But I've turned to people where I'm like, after I try to shut them down a few times when they're just trying to be so funny that I can't do my job, Right. And I'll turn it off and I'll be like, are you going to let me finish? Or I need to finish this. I got to perform for 2,000 people and you're keeping me from doing my job. Or I'll have to say, if you can't, like I was doing a corporate thing about 3 months ago, and I have a lot of innuendo in my show, and I kind of had to dull that down.
Right.
And I needed to make the woman I bring up says how she likes sex a lot. And obviously I couldn't do that. So I'm like, what's neutral? Okay, food, and food. I like food. Oh, cake, whatever. And this woman barrels towards me and says, I want to go up. I want to go up. And she won't let it go. And I'm like, and I can kind of tell when they're a little too much and it's going to be a problem. But sometimes you take a risk. She was so happy to participate. And I bring her up there. And it turns out in this corporate event that she was drunk. And I can't continue. And then I got to get to the bit. And I realize, oh, I can't say I like food because she was very, very overweight. She was overweight. So now I'm talking to the audience about the bit, and in my head, like on automatic pilot here, while in my head, I'm trying to just figure out what
you're trying to navigate. Yeah.
And so this is happening, and then this is happening. And I'm like, well, that word's not funny. Well, that word doesn't work. Well, how do I build on that? Because the guy has to respond to it next to her. I mean, that kind of stuff. What can you do?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. And what people don't, maybe not people, but the audience overlooks, I think, and when they're watching shows is that those variables that happen within a show that involves audience interaction, because every person doing and saying things can change the show, and you're having to adapt and adjust and change word, change script, change maybe sequence, and it's not always easy. It's multitasking as the show's going on. And then on top of that, like what you just said, it's a risk. And there's some times where as performers, I see somebody that is really excited to go on stage, and in my head I'm thinking, this is not the right person, but I can't not get them up. Oh boy, what am I going to do? And then when it all goes crashing down, crash and burn, in the back of your head, you're always like, I knew it. I knew this person was going to give me trouble. I knew it.
Yeah. Now I have, it was going to be amazing that I'm saving for the end because it was traumatic. But before I get to that, I did bring a woman up on stage, and as I'm explaining what I need her to do, someone's signing to her. And I'm like, oh, well, this could still work out. And I look at the woman, I'm like, is she going to get what I'm saying? And they're like, yeah, I think so. So I do that ventriloquist bit where you tap them on the back and the person moves their mouth and you give them little voices, right?
Right.
So I don't like to put those masks on because I like it to be spontaneous,
Right.
And I don't really tell them what we're going to sing or do. Anyway, so I tell them I'm going to tap on the back. They just move the mouth. I do the voice. Well, not only is she deaf, but she's mute. So I tap her on the back. I'm going to do this now, and I want you to know it's making my palms sweaty as I'm telling the story. But I tap her on the back, and she goes, "Ah!" Just as silent as it is now is how silent it was in the theater and backstage. I mean, people were like, oh no. And she won't stop, by the way. So
well, stop tapping her.
I wasn't. She just kept going. I'm like, this, she's still doing it. And then looking at me, I'm like, I don't know what to, and I can't make her sit down because that will make me look like I'm making a person of special need sit down. But I can't continue either. And yeah, I thought she was a good choice until that.
I thought she was a good choice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's tough. Those are tough things. I mean, those are tough situations. And sometimes it's like, for example, I've gone into an audience member before and you're so focused on doing the show that I'm like, oh, come up on stage. And it's a person with maybe something wrong with their leg or something. Right. And you don't see them because you don't know that they're going to have trouble getting up on stage, and you're just doing a show. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness. And those are things that you look for, a lot of times. That now you had to learn.
I brought a little kid up on stage. I always do. And then I finally turned to him to start the bit, and I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. He was purposely androgynous, not trans or transitioning, just androgynous, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to ask questions to kind of see if I can figure out the answer. And just like a Saturday Night Live sketch, the kid kept answering very neutral answers.
Non-binary.
Right. And there were things like that should not be neutral, that, you would normally think would be a very specific answer. So
this kid's been PR trained.
Right. So I look at the audience and I am stumped. I'm absolutely stumped. And I just look at the audience and go, you know what I'm trying to ask, right? I mean, I just had to give it up. And finally the kid goes, I'm a girl. I'm like, thank you. Now, turns out genetically not a girl, but refers to herself as themselves as a girl.
Yeah.
So, what can you do? I'm going to give you this story, and I'm going to try to make it short. But if you want the full story, it's in my book, and it is amazing, about when I was thrown off stage in Disney World in front of 5,000 people doing a corporate event for a gigantic Fortune 500 company. I had done corporate events before, and I knew how to do them, but I was doing a casino show, and a girlfriend of mine who was in the show, her best girlfriend was coming to see the show, whose husband was the CEO of a gigantic Southern-based healthcare company. Okay. And I didn't really know who they were. And then I realized what company it was. And my mom, coincidentally, was working for this company in Philadelphia, but a branch of the company.
Okay.
My girlfriend, who was a singer in this show, was friends with them. He always wanted to be a musician, so he'd like pay for celebrities to be in his band. And he was he was an egomaniac. He had a museum to himself in the lobby of his building, stuff like that. So he would pay for my singer friend to have studio time at Sony Country and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
We come to see the show, and afterwards he says, I want you to do my yearly end of the year stockholders extravaganza, whatever. Yeah. Usually they have musical stars. I go, I don't think what you enjoyed in a casino show would be enjoyed is the right act for you in a conservative.
Yeah, the right choice for the event.
No, you're wrong. I'll be in touch. We're in touch. It's basically write your own check, name your price. And I'm like, wow. And there's going to be cameras and whatever. So I named my price, and which includes an assistant. And over the next 6 months, I send his point person a bunch of footage to review because I'm concerned. And they keep saying, yeah, it's fine. I get to the venue in Florida, and I had done an afternoon show. It was just an icebreaker in between their seminars, and that was fine. And then at night, it was going to be like football stars were going to be there, and I was opening for Amy Grant, who I didn't know at the time, went from country. She was like a Christian singer, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? So his wife so I go up to the person in charge, and because they're running late, and I'm not getting a rehearsal. And I had music cues and stuff, things they hadn't done before. They were running very, very late. And I said to the wife, I go, hey, listen, you know what I'm doing tonight, right? Oh, no. She says, what are you going to do tonight? I go, oh, I'm going to do what you saw at the casino. And she's like, you can't do that here. I'm like, why are we talking about this an hour before I go on?
Right.
So this CEO walks in with all of his bodyguards. I walk right up to him. I go, you realize what I'm going to do tonight, right? He goes, yeah, it's going to be great. Now, one of the problems in the room was, so I go out. They asked me to cut 10 minutes off my time. I do. They're already running late. I go out. Now the room is 3 ballrooms long, and there's no delay machine to fix the delay. So they laughed here, then they laughed here, then they laughed here. So I wasn't killing, but I wasn't bombing. But to an inexperienced ear, it would sound like it was a little tepid because the laughter was not all at the same time. So I'm getting ready to finish. Little do I know, Amy Grant's like, I want to go on and I want to leave. Get this guy off stage. So because I've never worked with an act before, instead of someone giving me a note or a wave or something, they decide to stop playing my cues, which to me thinks something's broken and now I have to stretch.
Right.
They leave me hanging out to dry.
Right.
I'm stretching. No one's talking to me. I'm like, how are we doing? Are we almost there? Is there a stretching? Now, granted, I'm only like 24 or something like that. So I was, and I never had to. So eventually it's silent. There's flop sweat. The only joke I can think of to fill time still is about a priest and a nun on a camel. I get one line. It was not a clean joke. I get one line in. The CEO was given a microphone. He storms up on stage, puts me in a headlock, turns me away from the audience, and gives me like the look of fire and pushes me off stage. And I kind of thought it was like, get out of here, you crazy kid. And I kind of wave and I leave. Well, everyone backstage is having an absolute fit. They're like cursing me out and everything. Like, thanks a lot, you jerk, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what's happening. I'm in a panic. I go to my room with the assistant. And when I go off stage, he goes into an evangelical tirade about me for about 7 minutes, calling me smut and trash and all this other kind of stuff. We don't tolerate this sort of thing, and goes to town on me. Now, they're supposed to pay me the balance of my money at the end of the night, which is not going to happen right now. I call my mom. Oh, by the way, I should mention, 3 months earlier, my mom had been laid off from that branch in Philadelphia. He heard about it, called me and apologized and was embarrassed. And they kind of gave her like a fake job, but just kept giving her money brought her back for no reason. Just because I was going to be working for them. I said, Mom, enjoy it while you can. They're going to dump you right after this show.
Yeah.
So even whether it's good or bad, right? I mean,
right.
So the next day I have to fly home. I'm walking through the lobby, and all these people are there, and some of them were on my flight. Some of them thought it was part of the joke that they didn't get. Some of them thought he was a jerk, and others thought that I was garbage and are letting me know.
Yeah,
and it
was
was
all mixed reviews.
It ruined me, right? It ruined me. And so I fly home. He stops giving my friends studio time, guilt by association. He fires my mom, and I send them a letter, and I basically said, I spoon fed you every step of the way. You didn't do what I asked. I didn't get my rehearsal, which is contracted, and you would have known I was finishing up anyway, and you put your hands on me, and I expect the rest of the check by 6 o'clock tomorrow. I get my mom's having an absolute cow. Don't do it. They'll bury you financially. They send me the money, and they're like, we don't agree with your assessment. Well, of course they don't. What else are they going to say? 6 months later, the guy goes to prison for the biggest stock fraud and manipulation practice in healthcare history, right after the Enron guys went to jail, and now he's in all these documentaries. So, I thought this event was going to go well. It was gigantic. It was celebrities. It was 5,000 people. It was Disney World. It was a gigantic paycheck, and it was the worst experience of my life.
Did your check clear?
It did clear.
There you go.
Yeah, and
wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, it scarred, and I'm a responsible act. It scarred me for a long time. Like anytime I heard a Southern accent, or that someone would ask me about content, I would get. I don't want to curse.
But unfortunately, there are different acts that have different material that they use, and you need to know your audience and your booker needs to know the act.
Well, that's the other
booker is that you doing your best, saying, "Hey, look, my act. You've seen me. This is what I do." They were in the wrong. So.
Well, that's the other thing. I then went to a celebrity. I told him the story, a famous old school comic, and he's like, "Listen, you're not a weak act just because you don't play every audience. Find your audience,
right,
and play to your audience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be. You can only change it so much where it's not you anymore.
Right. Man, oh my gosh. Well, that was like a what was it?
Traumatizing. You feel traumatized, don't you?
Yeah, it's
I know.
Dramatic, like epic tale of a gig.
I know everyone else says funny, hilarious, self-deprecating things, and I just gave you one that wants you to kind of.
That was great, man. Hey,
I'm okay now, though.
Yeah, you're all right. You're all right now. Hey, but hey, thanks for chatting with me for a while, man. And
you're welcome. I love talking to you.
Same. And we need to get together when I'm back in LA to meet up. After all this whole thing's over, we need to have lunch again. So
I'd love that.
All right, bud. Have a good day. Stay safe. All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.